lactose, dairy, wheat, gluten, food intolerances, food allergies, and why it's so important to know your labels if you are somebody who has food intolerances or food allergies. Just to break this down real simple, there is 3 different types of allergic responses in the body. There's an IgE response, which is your typical anaphylactic, scratchy throat, throwing up, diarrhea right off the hop. And this is like, think about somebody being stung by a bee, somebody who has a nut allergy, they have to carry an EpiPen and their entire immune system goes into chaos, okay? So when you say allergy, an allergy is a very acute systemic reaction to basically an intruder in the body, all right? So if you have any IgE, so if you have a nut allergy, a dairy allergy, a wheat allergy, and they cause any extreme symptoms, you need to be staying away from those. I'm gonna explain to you why it's so important that you stay away from them in just a second. The next type of immune response is IgA, and this is the type where you might get more mucus and more autoimmune. So I see this more in women who may present with intolerances to dairy, but also having intolerances to wheat. Maybe they're getting more mucus, more snot in their nose, they're getting more colds and flus. Their immune system is always kind of tanked. Autoimmune candidates, so those of you with fibromyalgia, those of you with celiac disease, anyone with Hashimoto's, you would have, it's an antibody blood protein, and you may have this in elevated levels that could result in you having harder times with certain foods that can create a response in the immune system. And finally, we have IgG, and this is the one where most people get confused and they'll say, I have an allergy. And really what they have is they have an immune response. It's an intolerance. So if you don't go anaphylactic, you don't throw up, you don't scoot out the door with the poops after you eat something, but if you eat it for a few days, you start to feel a buildup, that is an IgG response, and it is a intolerance. So when you go to, say, a naturopath and they do blood work and they test you for allergies, you think you're getting allergic testing or allergy testing, you are getting IgG testing. So it is a delayed response in the body that shows that there is an immune response to something that you're eating. So why is this important, and why is it so important that you understand your labels and you don't monkey around with this? So I'm gonna use dairy as a great example, because so you may be playing a little game of silly bugger with your own health and perpetuating more problems for yourself in many, many destructive ways. So let's just say you have an IgA response or you have a IgG response to dairy, okay? So maybe you get mucus, maybe your immune system flares up more. You are getting the digestive issues, maybe your skin breaks out, but you're not dying, okay, from having dairy. So you say to yourself, it's no big deal, I'm just gonna have dairy, or you're not reading labels and you're not really understanding what you're consuming. And dairy is actually hidden in so many things. And lactose free does not mean dairy free. In fact, it's completely dairy. All they have done is place lactase in there so that you can have enzyme breakdown of lactose, okay? The point here is it's still dairy, okay? And if you have these intolerances and you are not doing your research on what you are consuming, you are creating an immune response. So here's the deal. If you have this and you're creating an immune response, the body treats that as inflammation. And what happens when we have inflammation? Our hormone, cortisol, starts to do its work to help combat inflammation, which it's doing what it's supposed to do. But let's just say you have this intolerance to dairy and you are constantly having dairy every single day, hidden in certain things, not really looking at labels properly, or just saying it doesn't really matter. What you are doing is you are forcing the immune system to constantly be in a state of inflammation and to try and break inflammation down. The body will continue to try and bring inflammation down. So you couple that with stress, you put in training, you put in these intolerances, and then you change your hormonal profile because your cortisol is rising because you're creating more inflammation in the body. It's not just about can you go poop or not. It's about creating a space where your body is not fighting inflammation in the negative way all the time. Certain breakdowns and inflammation are good for us, training inflammation for one, breakdown of retissue. We need cortisol. We need that hormone to do what it needs to do. But when we are constantly putting the body in this fight or flight because of consuming intolerances or allergies, then we actually create more of an inflammatory response in the body and force our cortisol to do a harder job than it needs to, which then can make it harder when you actually get really sick for your body to create what it needs to break down inflammation. So choose your path and think about it. Bye guys.